for this project, I'm going to be working with the following materials. I have these two sets of scrap fabrics that came from dress designs I made over 2 years or 2.5 years ago. I have about 1/2 meter of each, and I've just kept them to do something, and today is the day I'm going to be using them to make this scrunchie design. You also need 2 slim elastic bands that measure 25 centimeters or roughly 10 inches. You need a ruler with a straight edge. You need chalk to draw your lines, measuring tape, fabric scissors, as well as some pins when it's time to sew. So you would need to cut out 2 main pieces for this design. The first, which is going to be the scrunchie body, is going to be 64 centimeters or 25 inches by 18 centimeters or 7 inches, and then the one which is longer on top is 76 centimeters or 30 inches by 5 inches or 12 centimeters, and it's longer because it's going to become the ribbon that will wrap around the main scrunchie body. So to make the main body, we're going to be taking the wider panel, folding it like so, putting right sides together, and we're going to be joining up the edges, leaving the middle, which is about 5 centimeters or 2 inches open, because this is going to let you turn this piece inside out. So I'm going to be sewing on a 1 centimeter seam allowance, remembering to leave that mid region open. And once that is all done, don't forget to do your back stitch at the beginning and at the end. And then I'm going to be pushing one end through the middle like so. It doesn't really matter which end, you can start with the left or the right hand side, but just push it through until both ends meet like this. The aim is to join them together along this edge so you have a nice finished seam for that side of the scrunchie. So I'm going to be taking this to my machine and I'm going to be sewing on a 1 centimeter seam allowance, passing it underneath my footer like so. Because it's a very sort of like delicate tight stitch to do, just take your time doing it. As I was sewing, I would move the tunnel slightly to give me more room to stitch until I got all the way till the end, did my back stitch and took this piece out. So once you are done sewing this, that hole that we left open on the first seam that we sewed, I'm going to be pulling this through that hole. So once that is all done, this is what your piece should be looking like, and I'm going to be grabbing my elastic to pass through that opening that we left. So with a safety pin, I'm going to pass my elastic through that opening, through the tunnel. But to ensure that the elastic does not get lost, I like to just hold it down with a pin on one end like so. And then once my elastic comes out from the other side, I'm going to be joining both edges of the elastic using a zigzag stitch on my domestic machine. So you can add a pin here just to ensure that they don't sort of like lose their way, or you can hold it with your hands, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to be taking this to my machine and I'm going to be using stitch number 3 on my Brother LS14. Whichever zigzag stitch you have works. I just wanted to point out that's the stitch I'm going to be working with. So I'm just using a zigzag stitch, sewing so carefully from the beginning till the end, and doing the back stitch to secure my seam, and that just holds the elastic in place inside of the scrunchie body. So once that is done, you can go ahead and close off that opening using a slim edge stitch that is about 0.3 centimeters. If this is a bit tricky for you to do, you can just hand stitch this particular part to close off the opening of the scrunchie. Once that is all done, your scrunchie should look like this. So you can either stop here and have it as a simple round scrunchie if you want to, but I'm going to go ahead and make a ribbon which I'm going to attach to one side to give it this sort of like extra or flair that this design has. So I've put right sides together of my ribbon piece and we're going to be sewing it up together to create a tube or a tunnel. Then we're going to turn this inside out, give it a nice press before we finish off the edges. So I'm going to take this to my machine, turn it inside out and iron it flat, and this is what it should look like. So I'm going to grab my fabric scissors and I'm going to cut diagonally along the edge like so. This is optional. I just wanted the edge of the ribbon to have that sort of pointed finish, and I'm going to do this for the other side. If doing this freehand is a bit tricky, you can use a ruler to draw down a chalk line and then cut along that line, or you can just do it the way I have done it. So once I'm done cutting the edge, I'm going to fold it inwards like so, and I'm going to sew the edges of the ribbon close. Yet again, I'm using my edge stitch of about 0.2 to 0.3 centimeters, but if this is too troublesome or if this is too tricky for you to do, you can always hand stitch this like we did for the opening. So once that is done, I'm going to grab my piece, do the other end as well, and then I'm going to rope this around one edge of the scrunchie. I'm tying this around the edge that we had the opening and stitched it close, and I'm just tying a knot like so. Thankfully, because this fabric is Ankara and it's cotton and it has some stiffness, this knot would not unravel. But if you want to go ahead and add a stitch to ensure that it doesn't unravel, free to do so. So I went ahead to make a second pair because I had the time to do so, and I made one in blue and it just looks really good. I actually wore the orange one on Easter Sunday because I had this orange dress and it looked really cute. So this is a project that is beginner friendly, simple to do. You can also stitch this by hand if you don't have a sewing machine. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know down below. Give it a thumbs up as well. Share with your friends and sewing community. And until my next video, please stay safe. Have a good morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are. Bye. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys 10 fun and creative ways that you can reuse, repurpose, upcycle, and give new life to all of those scrap fabrics that you currently have and you don't know what to do with them. Now, this is actually one of the pieces from my first collection. I had a lot of scrap fabrics from that collection.